Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to this evening's meeting. This is the 25th meeting of the 143rd Council. Is anybody hearing two of me? Okay, good. One is enough for most. Ready? No. Okay. Ready. Great. Perfect. Welcome to the 25th meeting of the 143rd Council of the Corporation of the City of St. Thomas. Thank you all for coming on such a beautiful night. And for those at home watching, I turn it over to you, Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Your Worship. In recognition of Indigenous History Month and National Indigenous Peoples Day, which will be held on June 21st, 2023, I would like to read the Indigenous Land Acknowledgement. We acknowledge that the land on which we meet is the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee, Anishinaabeg, Adirondack, and Mississauga peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. We also recognize that this land is now home to the Munsee Delaware Nation, Chippewas of the Thames First Nation, and Oneida Nation of the Thames. This land was settled through Treaty 2, the McKee Purchase Treaty of 1790, and we, as beneficiaries of the treaty, recognize our collective responsibilities to the land and water.
Thank you very much. Moving next to disclosures of interest. Is there any disclosures from any of the members? Seeing none, we'll move on to minutes.
I have a motion that the minutes of the meeting held on June the 12th, 2023 be confirmed. I moved by Councillor Baldwin-Sands, seconded by Councillor Gibson.
Questions or comments on the minutes? Seeing that, all those in favor? Are there any opposed? That's carried.
Council will now resolve itself into committee of the whole to deal with the following business. First committee this evening is strategic direction and development. First item of unfinished business is general prohibitions in bylaw 50-88 for entertainment centers. I have a motion that report PD 2523 relating to general prohibitions in the zoning bylaw for entertainment centers be received for information, and further the council authorized staff to prepare an amendment to the St. Thomas zoning bylaw 50-88 to address general prohibitions related to entertainment centers, and further that a public meeting be scheduled for July the 17th, 2023 at 6 p.m. in accordance with Ontario Regulation 545/06 as amended. Moved by Councillor Wookey, seconded by Councillor Herbert.
Questions or comments on the report? Councillor Peters.
Thanks very much.
Almost went to first names again. I've got to be careful here.
That's all right, Your Worship. I thank staff for this. I think this starts to bring us into the 21st century as entertainment evolves over the etc. I did have to take some exception to some of the comments in the report, because I used to frequent Honolulu Harry's Pinball Parlor, and it was not a hangout for young people, and we didn't skip out of school. So, but I say that tongue in cheek to the city staff. I always enjoyed my time at Honolulu Harry's, and John Vickers did a great job running it. So I'm very supportive of this.
Thank you. Further questions or comments? Councillor Clark.
Just in that vein, I thought Park's pool room and Ken Kitchen's pool room were daycare centers for high school students. So I go back that far.
It was. Questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? Carried.
Next, we move into new business. First item relates to community improvement plan project for Rehoboth Home of Refuge and Support. I have a motion that report PD 2123 relating to community improvement project by Fresh Start Support Services for 118 Center Street be received for information, and further the council approve a residential grant and loan tax increment grant, Planning and Building Fees Grant, and Environmental Site Assessment Grant for application 2023-127 as submitted by Fresh Start Support Services for 118 Center Street. And further, the council direct that a bylaw be prepared to enter into a residential loan agreement with Rehoboth Girls Home of Refuge and Support related to a CIP project at 118 Center Street. Moved by Councillor Herbert, seconded by Councillor Clark.
Questions or comments? Seeing that, Councillor Clark?
I was just surprised at the number of people and services that are provided from outside St. Thomas and Elgin County. So I think this is a fair saw-off that based on the number of people from the city that are using it, I think we're able to help the project move forward, and perhaps they can go after other sources of funding.
Great. Questions or comments? All those in favor? Any opposed? That's carried.
Next item is notice of a public meeting to take place by Zoom from the Committee of Adjustment on June the 22nd at 10 a.m. This relates to an application for minor variance to permit a barrier-free access ramp with a setback of 2.75 meters from the front lot line, whereas the zoning bylaw requires a minimum setback of 4.5 meters at 24 Confederation Drive. Your worship, unless there are any further items from the members.
Councillor Wookie?
Thank you, worship. I have a question for Mr. Pompili regarding Northwest Area 1 that I talked to him about a little bit earlier today. I have a concern about this subdivision plan because as we develop 1, 2, 3, 4, a lot of them are boundaried by ravines, and I don't want them to be isolated from the rest of the city. If you take a look at, although it's in Central Elgin, Lyndhurst, and the other side in Southold, they are somewhat isolated from the city. So I'm hoping that we can see the plan of subdivision for Northwest Area 1, maybe in July or maybe in August, in terms of what's it looking like. The last thing I want is for it to be all backyards backing onto the ravine, so there's no access to and from the ravine. And I just want to keep my eye on this one. And secondly, that's a request that we could see that maybe in July or August. And the second thing is, where are we at in terms of discussions with Elgin County about active transportation links? Because now that we are abutting up against, we're abutting to Central Elgin, we're abutting to Southold. As we expand, we're going to be abutting to Southold more. Are we having discussions with them about active transportation links through all of that? And I think there's an Elgin County active transportation thing going on right now, but I don't know exactly where it's at. So Mr. Pompili, if you could give me an idea on both those kind of where things are at. It's one of those things that I care a lot about. I just don't want us I don't want to see this subdivision plan as a done deal right beforehand and we're stuck. Thanks.
Mr. Pompili?
Yeah, through you, your worship, to Councillor Wookie. Yeah, no, thank you. That's a great question, and I'm entirely aware of and I'm thankful that you brought that forward. As far as the first part of your question relating to Area 1, I'm not sure if I'm in a position to really bring something forward in July, but the moment that we can bring something forward, we certainly will bring it forward. We don't have an actual application in yet, so there's nothing to bring forward. I can certainly have discussions with the owners, the applicants, if they're comfortable releasing some preliminary designs. But we, our staff, have been adamant in all our discussions and all our consultation meetings with them about the need to promote an active transportation system throughout the subdivision and to provide key linkages within that subdivision. Within that subdivision, for all residents within that subdivision to have access to an active trail and transportation system, but also that outlets be provided within that subdivision to all the key intersections. So Wellington Street, Sunset, and Major Line. And confident that with the discussions that we've had and the plans that we've seen, that will be accomplished. And the moment that we do have a submission in and can share that with council, I'll be happy to bring that forward for then council to provide their input if we can go even further.
Yep.
And that's what that subdivision process will do. As far as the other part, dealing with our neighbors and our partners, that's really a part of our transportation master plan, recreation master plan, in terms of providing those linkages throughout our city, but also beyond our borders. And those discussions are always ongoing. We're going to be relaunching our official plan review again in view of some growth expectations that we're going to be we anticipate that we're going to be having over the next few years, and that'll initiate some of those discussions. But I will certainly engage with the other directors with the city here in terms of ensuring that we're having that communication with the county and with the neighboring municipalities, so that we can ensure that we have a very robust and overall transportation active transportation system that looks at it from a regional perspective as opposed to just within each municipal boundary.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Pompili. Further under this committee? Seeing none?
We'll now move into community engagement and services. The first item relates to last minute artificial field rental service fee under the fees bylaw. I have a motion that report PR 1423 relating to the last minute field service rental fee be received for information, and further that staff be authorized to prepare pursuant to section 22.1 of the Municipal Act, an amendment to the 2023 fees bylaw to reflect this new service fee. Moved by Councillor Wookey, seconded by Councillor Gibson.
Questions or comments? Councillor Wookey?
Thank you very much, Your Worship. I was the person that kind of brought this forward, and I want to thank Mr. Bray for addressing this and his department. As a minor tweak, I'm kind of hoping we could make it 9 o'clock to start instead of 10 o'clock. Because when it's 32 degrees out in the summer, if somebody wants to use it in the morning, that would be better. And I just think this is great to have it correspond to a similar situation that we have with our ice. So I'll make that shameless request to Mr. Bray to see what he says. Thanks.
Mr. Bray?
Thank you, Mayor Preston. Staff are present on site. That's not an issue, amending the start time.
Councillor Clark?
Thanks. I was also just wondering about why it ends the last day of August, when having the artificial turf allows us to go further into the fall.
That's when we traditionally lose our summer students and contract staff. So sometimes the staff levels aren't as high in the evening to maintain the site. But this is something, I see this as a trial. If we see that it can be extended, I'd be happy to do that next year.
Further questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? Are there any opposed? It's carried.
Next item under unfinished business relating to a request for lane closure by the Good Vibes Community Association, just for the members and the public information. This request has been withdrawn. Next, we move into new business. First item relates to a request for parking lot lane temporary closure by Central Community Healthcare. I have a motion that report ES 3923 relating to the request for parking lot lane temporary closure for the Central Community Healthcare Client Appreciation Barbecue be received for information, and further the council authorized the closure of a 21-meter section of laneway in the Curtis Street parking lot from 11 a.m. to 2:30 p.m. on June 28th, July 26th, and August the 30th, 2023 to allow for the CCHC Client Appreciation Barbecue. Moved by Councillor Wookey, seconded by Councillor McCauley.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? Carried.
No further items for this committee unless there are any items from the members.
Councillor Clark, then Councillor Kohler.
Thank you, Your Worship. I had a couple calls with regard to the former bird sanctuary in Pinafore Park. People were concerned about the quality of water, and I just didn't know if it's weather related or whether there was anything else going on. Just wondering if Director Bray could offer some insight in. They're concerned about the smell and lack of water movement.
Mr. Bray?
Thank you, Mayor Preston. The dam and the pond seem to be functioning normally. We visited the outfall today. There is positive water flow across into the area below. It's important to remember that the type of pond it is. There is duckweed present. It's not algae, and duckweed is it's an important plant material for ducks and aquatic animals. I don't think it's, I've talked to staff that have been in the park for years and they don't see it acting any differently than it has in the past. We will continue to monitor it. I know engineering services staff will clear away if trees fall in there and get down to the dam end of things, they will clear that, but it's clear right now and there is positive water flow.
Thank you. Councillor Kohler.
Thanks, your worship. Since we were talking about lanes, I'll bring it up in this committee. I wasn't sure if I should bring it up in here or civic operations, but there's been a request from people at the Grand Central with the laneway that runs in behind there. I believe the city owns that, and apparently there's no stop sign where it exits onto the street on either side, and they feel that there's been several close calls because people just continue to go, and they were wondering if there was any possibility or even if it was able to have a stop sign at the end of those lanes. I'm not really sure, and I don't need nothing tonight, but if just that request has come forward, and I'm not sure if it's our responsibility to do so or not.
We'll refer that to staff to take to check that and get back. Okay, fantastic. Further items? Seeing none, next.
Next, we move into infrastructure and civic operations. First item relates to the Canada Day celebration, a request for temporary exemption of the animal control bylaw. A motion that report ES 4023 relating to the Canada Day celebration request for temporary exemption of animal control bylaw 71-2011 be received for information, and further that a temporary exemption is granted to the Canada Day celebration event organizers from section 6.1 of the animal control bylaw 71-2011 as amended to permit a petting zoo at the event. Moved by Councillor Wilkie, seconded by Councillor McCall.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? It's carried.
Your worship, unless there are any further items from the members for this committee, we'll now move into corporate governance and administration. First item relates to Fresh Start Support Services. A motion that report SESS 0623 relating to Fresh Start Support Services be received for information, and further council support the Fresh Start House to Home project with $100,000 commitment towards the 2 units that will be used to support women-led families who are experiencing acute homelessness contingent upon federal funding approval. Moved by Councillor Baldwin Sands, second by Councillor Kohler.
Questions or comments? Councillor Peters.
Thanks very much, your worship. And it sort of builds on a comment that Councillor Clark made, and I'm hoping Heather might be able to, but when you look at the statistics of who's using the facility and where they come from, and I think it's just, I would hate for somebody to read this and read it wrong, but I am making the assumption that there's probably St. Thomas and Elgin families that utilize this service that are going to London and Woodstock and Oxford, just because of the nature of some of the issues they may be dealing with in their lives at the time. So I'm hoping you can clarify, is there a transient nature of how these facilities operate for perhaps protection to the individuals?
Ms. Sheridan?
Thank you, through you, Mayor, to Councillor Peters. So it's a great question, and 2 parts to it. The 10 units that we're talking about that would be used for the women and the families who are going through the program. It's a very specific program that isn't offered in a number of places across Southwestern Ontario. So that's part of the reason why we do have other people from other communities coming to our community to access that service. But on the other hand, those 2 units that we're talking about that are for women-led families that are experiencing homelessness, that would be through our by names list, and it would be only for people that are in St. Thomas. Hopefully that helps.
Further questions, comments? Counselor Wookie.
Thank you very much. I like this commitment and the solution in a sense of it's more, I wouldn't say permanent, but it's not transitional for a very short time period that, and this fits our plan of providing housing for people who are homeless and with families. So I'm really pleased that on this side of it, we can provide, hopefully with my colleagues agree, we can provide that 100,000 for those 2 units. So thanks to Ms. Sheridan for bringing that forward.
Further questions or comments? Counselor Herbert.
Thank you, Worship. When I read this, this is what we are, this is what council is, this type of funding and type of support for the homeless. I totally support it, and I think this is continue. We need to continue to do things like this, and I'm happy because this is what we do. You know, so we try to make things better for the homeless.
Thank you. Further comments, questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? Are there any opposed? That is carried.
Worship, unless there are any further items from the members under corporate governance. We'll now move into regular session. I have a motion that the recommendations, directions, and actions of council and committee of the whole, as recorded in the minutes of this date, be confirmed, ratified, and adopted. Moved by Councillor Gibson, second by Councillor Herbert.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Are there any opposed? That's carried.
No reports of committees this evening. We'll now move into petitions and communications. First item is a request for proclamation, flag raising, and jumbo lighting from the nameless. I have a motion that Council of the City of St. Thomas proclaim August 31st, 2023 as International Overdose Awareness Day in the City of St. Thomas, and further that the International Overdose Awareness Day flag be flown at City Hall on August 31st, 2023, and further that the Jumbo Monument be lit in purple on August 31st, 2023 in recognition of International Overdose Awareness Day. Moved by Councillor McCauley, seconded by Councillor Gibson.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Are there any opposed? That's carried.
Second item under petitions and communications is an application that has been made to the Alcohol and Gaming Commission of Ontario by Wing Boys for a liquor license for its indoor area at 717 Talbot Street. Council may make representation to the commission concerning the application. Your worship, unless there are any further items of petitions, we'll now move into unfinished business of council. Seeing no items under unfinished, we'll now move into new business of council. Moving right along, next order of business are our bylaws. I've motioned that leave be granted to bring in the bylaws, moved by Councillor Clark, seconded by Councillor Kohler.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? Carried.
I have a motion by Councillor Clark, seconded by Councillor Kohler, that the bylaws be now read a first time, referred to council and committee of the whole, and read a second time.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? Carried.
First bylaw, please.
First bylaw is a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the council meeting held on the 19th day of June, 2023.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor, opposed, carried. Second bylaw, please.
Second bylaw is a bylaw to amend bylaw 50-88, being the zoning bylaw for the city of St. Thomas. This is to remove a holding symbol for Harvest Run Phase 3, Stage 2.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor, opposed, carried. Third bylaw, please.
Third bylaw is a bylaw to authorize the mayor and clerk to execute and affix the seal of the corporation to a certain agreement between the city and Canadian Commercial T2 Inc. This relates to site plan file for the property at 1029 Talbot Street, and it's an amending agreement.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor, opposed, carried. Fourth bylaw, please.
Fourth bylaw is a bylaw to authorize the mayor and clerk to execute and affix the seal of the corporation to a certain agreement between the city and the joint board of management of the Elgin Area Primary Water Supply System. This relates to a water supply agreement.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor, opposed, it's carried. Fifth bylaw, please.
Fifth bylaw is a bylaw to authorize the mayor and clerk to execute and affix the seal of the corporation to a certain agreement between the city and the joint board of management of the Elgin. Sorry, I think I've got, Elgin Area Primary Water Supply System. This relates to the South Edgewater Booster Station License of Occupation.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor, opposed, carried. Sixth and final bylaw, please.
Sixth bylaw is a bylaw to amend bylaw 188-2002, being a bylaw to impose fees or charges with respect to recreation service matters. This relates to a walk-in rate for artificial turf field rentals.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor, opposed, carried. Your worship, I rise to report successful passing of 6 bylaws.
Great.
I have a motion by Councillor Clark, seconded by Councillor Kohler, that the report in council and committee of the whole on the 6 bylaws be received and adopted. The same be read a third time and gross, signed by the mayor and clerk, sealed and numbered.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Are there any opposed? That's carried.
We've already dealt with the public notice, no notices of motion. Your worship, at this time, there's a need to move into closed session. I have a motion that this meeting be closed to deal with a position plan, procedure, criteria, or instruction to be applied to any negotiations carried on or to be carried on by or on behalf of the municipality, a proposed or pending acquisition of land, and a matter of scientific, technical, commercial, or financial information supplied in confidence to the municipality, which if disclosed could reasonably be expected to significantly prejudice the competitive position of a person, group of persons, or organization. Moved by Councillor Herbert, second by Councillor Gibson.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, I'll remind the folks at home that we're now going to move into a closed session. And so our meeting will in effect end. When we are finished with our closed session piece, we'll come back in public in order just to adjourn or pass anything that occurred during our closed session. So we'll see you all next, July 17th. It's not next. It's a little while before we meet again. All right. So all in favor? Any opposed? That's carried.